Oh, hi there, everyone. Welcome. I'm Michelle Teague.
Yes, and I'm Betty Novak. How are you this morning? It's
Uh,
been busy for me.
it's been a busy week. Yes, it has.
Good
Uh,
boy.
we thought we would talk today about something that we see as a challenge for several different types of companies. They could be very small companies, they could be larger companies. This is something that happens this time of the year over and over again. And it's how to handle holiday vacation requests. HR people, managers, business owners, they can have a tough time when it comes to vacation requests. And I know, Betty, you've seen this with even with government agencies. Some of them have challenges when it comes to vacation requests.
Yeah, I found that with government agencies, it was the first time I ever was able to roll over my vacation time if I couldn't take it all the first, the year before. And that's really something new. I mean, because as far as I'm concerned, Marty and I stayed close, and sometimes we had to go up to Rhode Island for Thanksgiving, see my sister, my parents, but otherwise we would stay in there, and then we'd say, where are we going after New Year's? So we could roll it over. And in the end, Marty had so much vacation, he didn't have to go to work the last quarter that he was early retiring. So that was phenomenal. But I just have to say one thing. I was in other private sector that were entrepreneurial. That's stressful because depending on what it was, whether it's restaurant, I, I was in Popeyes and Sambo's and legs. I mean, who are delivering Christmas legs and
Yes.
promos and so forth. You don't know if you're going to get a holiday in retail. So really, I had to move. I had to get on a plane Christmas Eve and get on a plane Christmas night to come back if I wanted to see family. So that was stressful. So everybody who's in their type of business, there is stress
Yes.
around.
Yes, there is. And part of it revolves around these holiday vacation requests. So, what we wanted to do today is talk about some ways that companies can indeed handle these holiday vacation requests. And we found an article on insperity.com that talks all about this. And the very first uh, tip that we have for organizations is if you haven't done so already, you need to establish a paid time off or a PTO policy in writing. Having that policy in writing will go to a very long way as far as helping you avoid unpleasant surprises for both the employees and for the employers. Having a formal paid time off policy sets parameters and it explains rules for employees taking time off up front. Uh, I know I have worked for several companies that have these policies in place. And there are a lot of smaller companies out there that think, oh, well, I'm not that big. I don't need to have something like this in writing. And nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is, as soon as you start your business, you need to have these types of policies in place. That way, as you expand and as you grow, it's already there. You don't have to think about it. The policies are already there. So some of the issues that might be addressed by these types of policies are, are there a limit to how many people can be out of the office at the same time? How far in advance can employees request pay time off? Are there certain processes that you will use to approve vacation time? Especially if the number of employees wanting time off during a certain period of time exceeds the maximum number of employees that can be out of the office. And for how long can each employee be out on vacation at any given time? So if a company has these types of policies in place and actually follows them, it's going to make it a whole lot easier for both the employees and the employers. Uh, as with any other policy, it's not going to be worth it if nobody bothers to follow it, if you make too many exceptions, or if an employee perceives that the rules don't apply to leadership, which is something that needs to be in that policy. So make sure that you document all your decisions about vacation requests and uh, include those into the employee's personnel file.
That's right.
What else can employers
Mm,
do?
Well, there are some, which unfortunately, there are some companies that actually close up for Christmas.
Yes, there are. Mhm.
And so that makes it easy on them because everybody's gone.
Mhm.
And so that makes it easy. But everybody else is exactly how you described it, Michelle. They have to really figure out how to manage it, be able to communicate it. And we'll talk about that later. They also can use a vacation calendar. And, it will simply show each employee's expected vacation through the year. So there may be sudden times that they have to be off, or they may find out that they have to change their vacation, and then you can change the calendar. But why is a calendar important? Because it's a really valuable planning tool. I mean, you have others, but this is really good for company leadership to know when the employees will likely be out and be able to forecast the staffing requirements, because they want to make sure everything's covered to a certain extent. It shows employees which dates are unavailable due to high demand. So, it's sort of good because I knew some employees that would come and say, I need this day, I need this day. And the managers say, but you can't have this day because it's already been used, and they would have it not be happy. So it shifts responsibility onto the employees to plan better. And that's important, especially if you're on a team.
Yes.
You need to find out if you're going to take vacation. I had a team member in the federal government who was not in the office from Thanksgiving through New Year's Day.
Wow.
She had that much, and they let her have off during that time. Eventually, they told her that she needed to divide it into other times, but it was a real interesting time as it being a team member, right? It shifts. This makes the vacation request process more seamless if you do these things. And any issue or conflicts that arise, especially around the important holidays, can be worked out well in advance. The other thing is, you could have your calendar on paper and put it up on the wall, or you can have it in digital form. And with with everybody having Outlook or a mail system that has a calendar, you can make a calendar that doesn't have your stuff on it, but is exclusively for vacation planning. So that could be helpful. So it could be a calendar for individual teams. The teams decide their vacation and the manager signs off on it. And you could have I didn't know this, you could have the calendar up for an entire year. So they really can see when people are not going to be there. And really, it's good to have it because they're federal holidays. And so,
Yeah.
there are some holidays that people aren't going to give. When I was a teacher, Memorial Day, my boss said, we don't have Memorial Day off. And I said, why? And he says, because it's a Yankee holiday. That was interesting, but it is not. And people do take off May 31st or the Memorial Day weekend. So you need to announce to the entire office when the calendar is open so employees can start working on their plan. And of course, this applies to planned vacation. Those 1 or 2 weeks that you get each year, need to plan when you're going to do it and what you're going to do it, and probably what season is best to do it, type of thing. So but there'll still be some conflict with that. And so you have to you work with other employees, with your fellow employees to work it out. So that's it. I mean,
Yeah, I worked with
calendar's
a
good.
guy, one guy that I worked with, he knew every year, the first 2 weeks of June, he and his family were going to be going to the Outer Banks. So every year, first of the year, he'd go in there and he would request those 2 weeks off because he knew. And that's it. There are a lot of people out there who already know when their vacation time is going to be. And so you might as well request it at the beginning of the year and make it easy for everybody to figure out. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
another thing that is that this is the manager and employees. Some employees say during the big holidays, they say like Christmas or Thanksgiving, say, I'm going to stay
mhm.
here because it's quiet and I
Yes.
can get my work done. I don't have a problem because their family is in town, so they can see them, when they decide to get off
Mhm.
work or leave the office. So
Definitely.
there are so many things that are going on with this process
Mhm.
that really have to be on your game. So
Definitely. Uh, one of the third tip that we have for everybody is to communicate with employees frequently. And when it comes to communicating, you need to let people know what's going on, when it's going on. It and when it comes to vacation time, it truly is impossible to over communicate with your employees about vacation requests, specifically those for high demand times such as the holidays. Show your employees that paid time off policy that you have. Announce the opening of your company's vacation calendar. It's not just a one and done thing. You have to remind people about this. You have to let them know what's going on, keep them in the loop. Life gets really busy and people will forget. So you want to make sure that you regularly communicate to your employees and to your team members about any type of deadlines, about any type of reminders, upcoming holidays, remind them what the vacation policy is, remind them what the approval policy and procedures are. It's not just walking into their boss's office and saying, "Hey, I need to take this time off." You're going to have to request that in writing. You're going to have to get it approved by the right people, and then you have that time off. Uh, let employees know they can speak to you about any concerns they may have because there are going to be some exceptions every now and then, especially when it comes to religious reasons. You've got a lot of religious holidays happening in these last few weeks of the year, and you don't want to uh, seem like you are favoring one particular religion over another. The EEOC will not be happy with you if you're doing something like that. So you want to make sure that you take into consideration employees' requests for time off when it comes for religious observances.
well, privately owned companies I found,
Hmm.
and even as large as they are, one I worked for, and they didn't give any time. They didn't give any consideration to the Jewish holidays,
Hmm.
any other holidays besides Christian holidays. So it was very interesting that a friend of mine fought for it, and she finally had to relent, and her RVP ended up saying, "Just take a leave day, just
Hmm.
take a leave day," and so she lost a leave day, but she did you know, celebrate it. So
Yeah, I had one of my friends. Uh, she was Eastern Orthodox, so they celebrate Christmas after New Year's.
in January,
And
March.
uh, she would get into highly uh,
Mm.
energized debates with leadership about taking time off then. And she said, you have no problems giving people time off for when other Christians celebrate Christmas. Why are you having a hard time with me taking this off? And she had a good point, because other people could get their time off, and she would have to use up a lot of vacation time for that. Yeah,
Yeah, that should change.
yeah,
I don't know if it has changed, and it's unfortunate. So the fourth tip is to empower employees to resolve conflicts. I mean, a lot of companies have work teams and they have divisions. And so these groups, depending on who they are, should get together and be able to talk about what vacation time they're wanting and to negotiate it if it leaves the team sort of direct without anybody there, or the division doesn't have enough staff to really cover the important work. And so it's up to really the senior manager to come in and help them negotiate around that conflict. Yeah. I had a team and we didn't have problem because we all were the same skilled and we had cross skilled each other, so we could take off anytime we needed to. But often employees will naturally work out these issues, like I just said, among themselves. And maybe one employee, for example, maybe one employee has to travel out of town to see family over a holiday, and therefore they need the vacation time to do the traveling and to be able to see people because they're not local. Other employees have children who will be in school, who'll be out of school at that time, and it's just, and they need to be there to be able to take care of them during the time that they aren't in school. So as they discuss their individual circumstances in the team or the division, it becomes clear to the employees which holiday vacation request should take precedence. So this removes the uncomfortability of and conflict of vacation time. So that it's a good tip. And people really want people to have their vacation.
yeah.
There are
They
a
do.
few that don't want people to have anything, and they bring in the conflict. But people
Yeah.
usually can talk it out.
One of the teams that I worked with, we would get together in September, and we would talk about it then. I always travel at Thanksgiving. I would go over to my mother's. Uh, and the reason why I would travel at Thanksgiving and I wouldn't travel at Christmas is because when my children were small and they were growing up, Santa Claus didn't want to have to track down a little boy and a little girl and have to figure out where they were to bring presents to that particular location. So I always made sure that we were home over Christmas. And I had other team members who were exactly the opposite. They would stay home for Thanksgiving and host Thanksgiving in their homes, and then they'd be up and gone and out and visiting their family over Christmas. So for me, I would always take the time off at Thanksgiving and volunteer to work over the Christmas holidays.
Often when I was in retail before I taught, I would Thanksgiving. Really, you had to be careful because sales happened Black Friday, so they needed to have enough. And if you're a manager, you don't get to be off those 3 days, Black Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So you only get Thanksgiving. So you sometimes, I had to find a friend who family would want to invite me to be in Thanksgiving. When I was in college, that was a given because I lived in New York. But it and other things. I mean, like Christmas, forget it. I mean, you can't really get off around Christmas and after Christmas when all the returns are coming and you need everybody, all hands on deck and then some. So, it depends on the industry and what the industry requires you to do.
Definitely. Uh, the next tip we're going to talk about is incentivizing employees to change their requested vacation dates. Uh, and what this is talking about is you may have some employees who are reluctant to switch their vacation dates to accommodate their fellow employees. And so as a manager, as a business owner, as an HR person, the company could offer special incentives to make it worth their while. So this is a way of compensating if affected employees for the inconvenience of having to move vacation dates around the holidays. For example, you could give them some comp time or early dismissal on one day. You could offer a floating holiday to them. You could allow them to work remotely for a few days before or after a holiday, or you could pay them a bonus for working on the holidays. Uh, Companies need to do whatever makes sense for their organization's budget and workflow and consider what is most meaningful for the employee. Obviously, they're wanting to take time off for a reason. So offering some of that flexibility, uh, offering that floating holiday, offering to let them work remotely may make more sense as opposed to telling them, you can't take this time off because everybody else already is.
I think yeah, and working remotely is a good idea because then you can do your work, but you can also prepare for the holiday. Take a few hours that you can, then come back to work. So yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
We talked about too earlier that you should allow a set amount of vacation time to roll over into next year. That's tip number 6. The prospect of losing vacation time can be a powerful disincentive to move vacation days, especially when it comes to end of year holidays such as Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Hanukkah. So that makes it hard. So you need to check the state law as well to see if they have a use it or lose it type of policy or prohibit it. I mean, California, Montana, and Nebraska are 3 states that don't allow for it. So, but if your state law provides flexibility in this area, there are still reasons that you may want to avoid a use or lose PTO policy. For example, many employees worry they'll lose their vacation time permanently if they don't use it by the end of the year. And this can make employees less compromising if conflict arises. And having said that, again, in certain companies and definitely in federal government and some local county government state, they'll allow you to roll it over, but you can only roll over so much. So if you're over, like I think was, I'm guessing, because I don't remember, but 260 hours, you can't go any higher than that. So you have to plan during the year to use that vacation time so you don't lose the vacation that's over the limited time period. I mean, in the private sector, I never had use or lose. You took it when you can take it. Right. Right. So, but if you simply drop the use of the use it or lose it PTO policy, then, fear often goes away and employees are more likely to be flexible because it creates a stress. It's really one big stressor. But if your state allows unused vacation time to be rolled over into the following calendar year, there are practical things that you should consider in developing your HR policy around this. You need to know how much time can be rolled over. You need to state it very specifically so nobody doesn't understand it. It could be 100%, 50%, and like I said, it was only a certain amount of hours for my husband. But how much vacation can be taken at a time? So, 2 weeks or unlimited time off. I never had unlimited time off, but I did have 1 or 2 weeks. So, you as an HR person need to be clear how much time people can take off and when they can take it off. So that's pretty much it on that. It's
Yeah,
not much. It's just, is the policy there or is the policy not there? And what are the parameters of that policy? That's all that is.
yeah, I've worked for companies where, like you said, you could roll over your vacation time, but they would max out at a certain number of hours, and then you'd have to take it. And as a result, people would end up only working, 3 or 4 day weeks for several months because they'd end up taking off on Mondays or Fridays, or they would just constantly have those days off because they had to use the time off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my husband did eventually, because I had flexi place. So I worked so many hours and I started out with 1 day off every week, and I said, I can't stand it. It's staying too long at work. I
Uh-huh.
said, but it was okay to have a flexi place. So he would make sure he had flexi time during that time, and it was a vacation day, so he could get off.
That's good.
Yeah.
The last tip that we're going to talk about is introducing more objectivity into the process with formal approval procedures. If there's a conflict about holiday vacation requests, you can skip over group meetings, negotiations, and incentives if you have anticipated the conflict in the first place and have that formal objective procedure for deciding which vacation requests you'll approve and deny. These procedures should be outlined and in writing in your paid time off policy so that everyone is aware of what happens when too many people want to take vacation time at once and tough decisions have to be made. Employees need to understand that your approval of vacation time around holidays is not based on favoritism, discriminatory factors, or random selection. So some examples when it comes to these types of procedures you can use is first come, first serve. So the person who literally, January 2nd, they're sitting there at their boss's door at 8 a.m. saying, here's my vacation request for the rest of the year. That's first come, first serve. It's literally as simple as it sounds. Employees who sign up first for vacation over a certain period of time get those dates approved until the maximum number of employees who can take off at any given time is reached. At that point, other employees must choose an alternative vacation date. If you're going to use that type of procedure, make sure you notify all employees at once when the vacation calendar will open. Give employees plenty of advanced warning. You need to make sure it's several weeks in advance so that way they can plan accordingly. If someone's out of the office and misses the announcement, they could feel resentful that they lose out on the opportunity to sign up for their preferred vacation time. So make sure everybody's in the loop. That's where that communication part. And like we said, you can't over communicate some of this. Another thing you can do is have blackout dates around the holidays. This is when employers don't allow employees to take time off across the board. It doesn't matter. Like Betty was talking about, if you're in retail, there are very certain times of the year, such as Black Friday, that you cannot take off, and they literally will be blacked out. So you're not going to be able to take that time off. And it seems like that would eliminate some problems with how to handle vacation time requests, but you need to be careful because implementing this policy can cause even more problems. You can end up with very resentful employees. You can end up with poor work-life balance. You could have a negative workplace culture. You could have high turnover. You could have lack of competitiveness in the job market. So taking time off during the holidays can be a cultural norm for many people, especially with families, because they want to spend time together. Many mentioned, schools are closed. What are you going to do with the kids when school are closed during the holidays? Somebody's got to be there to take care of them. and many employees have no family nearby and have to travel to see them. So, Betty, one of the things that employers and organizations need to do is they need to be human. Uh, they need to apply policies as objectively as possible and make sure that it's not being seen as draconian, and that people are put into a disadvantaged point against their peers and other companies.
Yeah, and one thing that this article doesn't talk about that just came to mind is we're mainly talking about companies that work with Christian Jewish values, but and some actually add Islam's holidays. But when you're overseas in other countries that are just really different from Europe and us, then in South America, you need to really look at your PTO's policies, because you're going to find that there are different types of holidays that your employees need and want to take off. So it can be a different cultural a different cultural, not a problem, but something that you have to deal with. Negotiation, you talked about this, Michelle. Negotiation is really prime. You as a manager need to be able to ask the certain questions.
Yeah.
So when you come and be careful that they don't sound discriminatory, but asking a question is what's the purpose of the vacation if you can share it, and how long are you going to be gone, and do you have an alternative time, and if not, I would appreciate if you also decided on an alternative time. So that way as a manager what's going to happen, and that you have a lot of information to be able to help make that vacation happen.
It's interesting that you bring up other countries, because even in the United States, I know when I lived in the Savannah, Georgia area, there's a huge St. Patrick's Day parade. And so
Right.
everybody in the Savannah area wanted to take off on St. Patrick's Day. When I lived in New Orleans, down there in Slidell, everybody wants to take off for Mardi Gras. So you've got different pockets in our own country where there are going to be local celebrations and local holidays that take precedence over others that people are going to want off. Yeah.
It's funny you should say that about New Orleans, because I worked for Popeyes. That was my third region training manager job. And once we ended up down in corporate during Mardi Gras. So we were left to go to a restaurant. We were assigned a restaurant to work the front or the back. And that was a real challenge, I'll tell you. But, we could do it as region training managers because we've been trained and we were training people, but that's what, happened. But we were also given time off to go and have a drink and eat at Copeland's and so forth. Al Copeland's restaurant.
I love Copeland's. Yeah.
Oh, I did too. I mean, it's a great restaurant. It's a great concept, and he still kept it now that Popeyes is with somebody else. So yeah, you never know what you're going to do in a holiday that you want to be in.
Exactly.
Everybody wants you to work, type of thing.
Exactly. All right. Well, we hope this gives you some ideas for what to do this time of year when it comes to all these vacation requests that you're getting. The next topic we're going to be talking about for our next meeting, we're going to talk about how to deal with some of the stress that these holidays bring upon you. Now that you have a way to reduce the stress of the vacation request time off, we're going to talk about other ways to help reduce some of the stress caused by the holidays and what you can do there in your organization.
Because sometimes the holidays can really provide a lot of stress. because you're having company and you're having to work, and you don't know how to, you don't want to burn out, and you don't know how to balance it. So yeah, we're going to talk about that next time.
All right.
It'd be
All
great.
right, everybody. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.